Alright everybody, welcome back to another video. So in today's video I'm going to be predicting all of the NCAA baseball tournament. I'll be predicting every single game of each regional, super regional, and all the College World Series games. First up is the Knoxville Regional. We've got Tennessee as the 1, Southern Miss as the 2, Indiana as the 3, and Northern Kentucky as the 4. I think Tennessee and Indiana both win their opening round games. Then I think Southern Miss beats Northern Kentucky in elimination. Tennessee beats Indiana in the 1-0 game. Then I think Southern Miss beats Indiana in the second elimination game. Before, I think they play like a really good game versus Tennessee in the game 6, but I think Tennessee comes out on top and gets through that regional. Next up is the Greenville Regional, with 1 seed East Carolina, 2 seed Wake Forest, 3 seed VCU, and 4 seed Evansville. I think this is a really good one for those top 2 teams. East Carolina and Wake Forest, I think, are going to just absolutely have, I think this is going to be one of the best regionals. I think it's going to be one of the most competitive. It's definitely going to have, a really, good game in it somewhere, at least. I think East Carolina wins the opening round. So does Wake. I think Wake wins the 1-0 game, and VCU comes out of the elimination bracket after they beat Evansville. No, I think Evansville actually beats VCU there. And then I think East Carolina beats Evansville in the elimination game. Then I think they win Game 6 and force a winner-take-all Game 7 versus Wake Forest. But I just think Wake Forest, they have too much talent to lose to East Carolina. I know East Carolina had the better year, but I just think Wake Forest is just the better team. They had a really good year last year. They were really hyped up. They didn't live up to it, but they can definitely prove a lot of people wrong, like Tennessee did last year in the postseason. So I think Wake Forest wins that one. Next up is the Norman Regional, with a 1 seed Oklahoma, 2 seed Duke, 3 seed UConn, 4 seed Oral Roberts. This is another really good regional. I mean, Duke probably should have hosted. Oklahoma's a good team. UConn always seems to have a decent postseason. So, Oral Roberts obviously made the College World Series last year and gave me a heart attack as a Florida fan. I thought we were going to lose that game and be so embarrassed, but yeah. So I think Oklahoma and Duke win their opening round games. I think Duke wins the 1-0 game. UConn wins the elimination game. Oklahoma comes back and beats UConn in the second elimination game. Then I think you got Oklahoma and Duke in the regional final. I mean, I haven't seen a lot of Oklahoma this year, but for them to be the 7th seed, they've got to be decent. I think they win. Yeah, I think they win the last 2 games of the regional. They come back out of the losers bracket and win the entire regional. And they knock off Duke to advance to the super regional. Next up is Florida State, the Tallahassee Regional, with a 1 seed Florida State, 2 seed Alabama, 3 seed UCF, 4 seed Stetson. I mean, I think it's just tough. I mean, I think Florida State and Alabama win their first round games. I mean, UCF, they started off the year really good. Some people thought they were going to host, but they ended up just falling off. I don't see them turning it around. I think they lose the first elimination game to Stetson too. Stetson's really one of those annoying teams that just always seems to just be annoying to the Florida and Florida State, all the in-state teams that have to play them. I think Florida State wins the 1-0 game. Stetson loses to Alabama, and then Florida State beats Alabama to win the region. I think Florida State sweeps through. I think Florida State's a really good team. As a Florida fan, they absolutely destroyed us every time we played them, and I think they can make it really far, to be honest. Next up is the Fayetteville Regional. with 1 seed Arkansas, 2 seed Louisiana Tech, 3 seed Kansas State, and 4 seeds Southeastern Missouri. I'm gonna be honest, I don't like Arkansas at all. They're not a good team, man. Like, they've got Hagen Smith and like a few good pitchers, but that offense, it's just not reliable. They've got a really easy path to Omaha, feels like. I don't feel like they have a lot of challenges in their way. So that's probably just going to get them right through there, even though they have had the struggles with the offense. So if you're an Arkansas fan, I wouldn't be worried about making it to Omaha, but actually having success there is not going to be easy for you guys this year, if I'm being honest. So I'm going to go with Arkansas winning game 1. Then I'm going to have Louisiana Tech winning. Then I have Kansas State beating Southeastern Missouri in the first elimination game. Then you've got Louisiana Tech and Arkansas in the 1-0 game. I think Arkansas wins that. Louisiana Tech wins the second elimination game, while Arkansas just beats Louisiana Tech again and moves on to the Super Regional. Next up is the Charlottesville Regional. This was like another good one. I think St. John's is a really good team. Obviously, as a Florida fan, they completely ruined my opening day. But yeah, that was a long time ago. I'll forgive them for that. I think I really want them to do good this postseason, just so that makes Florida look a little bit better, at least for dropping that game. I think Virginia beats Penn. I think St. John's. I think they lose to Mississippi State. Mississippi State, I don't think they should have hosted, but they definitely should have been a lot closer than some people were saying. They're really one of those annoying teams that just, like, I don't know. I haven't looked into their stats yet, but when Florida played them, it just felt like they're having so many long at-bats and getting walks, and then once you would finally throw like one over the middle that wasn't a ball, they would just hit it out. And it was, even though we ended up winning that series, it was just really annoying and stressful to watch. So I think Mississippi State gets past Virginia in the 1-0 game and advances to the regional final. Then I think St. John's wins the elimination, but they get beat by Virginia in the second elimination game. I think Virginia forces a Game 7, but Mississippi State comes back and wins the Game 7 to advance on to the Super Regional there. Next up is the Tucson Regional, with 1 seed Arizona, 2 seed DBU, 3 seed West Virginia, 4 seed Grand Canyon. A lot of people didn't think Arizona should have hosted. I personally didn't care. I wasn't really sure, but I think Arizona wins the first game. Then you got, I think DBU wins the second game, which puts West Virginia beating Grand Canyon in the elimination game. And I think DBU actually wins the second game, the 1-0 game. I think they win that. And then I think Arizona beats West Virginia in the second elimination game. And then DBU moves on to the Super Regional with the sweep through that regional. I really like DBU this year. I think they can make some noise. I think Arizona is definitely one of the weaker hosts, and yeah. So next up is the Chapel Hill Regional. You got 1 seed UNC, 2 seed LSU, 3 seed Wofford, 4 seed LIU. I've got UNC and LSU winning opening round games. LIU beating Wofford. No, Wofford beating LIU actually. And then I'll have UNC winning the 1-0 game, LSU beating Wofford, and then I have UNC beating LSU again. I know LSU's like on fire right now. I just don't see that last game. I think UNC is a good team again this year, and I feel like I might be wrong here, but I just think that UNC gets through that easily. I think maybe LSU gives them a challenge, but I just don't think that magic will keep going on. Alright, now moving on to the second half of the bracket. You've got the Lexington Regional over here. You got 1 seed Kentucky, 2 seed Indiana State, 3 seed Illinois, and 4 seed Western Michigan. I think Kentucky and Indiana State win opening round games. I think Indiana State loses the 1-0 game and faces Illinois out of the elimination bracket. I think Indiana State wins that. Kentucky beats Indiana State to move on to the Super Regional. Next up is the Corvallis Regional. A lot of people have been high on UC Irvine. I am too. I think they'll do good. I think Oregon State and UC Irvine win opening round games. I think UC Irvine wins the 1-0 game. I think Tulane wins the elimination game. Then I think Oregon State beats Tulane. I think UC Irvine sweeps through this region. I don't like Oregon State, man. Like, they've got Travis Bazana, I don't know how you pronounce it, whatever. It just feels like that's all they have. They're just like, they're not a good team. I haven't liked what I've seen from them, and I don't think they'll make it very far this year. Alright, next up is the Raleigh Regional. NC State wasn't really gonna even be a host a couple weeks ago, but they've just been on fire, and they've ended up putting themselves easily into that conversation, and now they are a host, obviously. I think them and South Carolina win their opening round games. Then I think Bryant beats James Madison in the elimination game before South Carolina. No, actually, I think NC State wins the 1-0 game. Then I think Bryant actually beats South Carolina. The 4 seed will get to the regional final, but I think NC State will still win that and move on to the Supers. Alright, next up is Georgia. Man, I don't know what to think of Georgia, man. Like, they've been a good team all year, but they really were very good in May. At least the beginning of May, they were not very good. They lost I think they lost their last 3 games, and 2 of them weren't even close. I think 2 of them were almost run rules. I think it's good that they're going into postseason with a fresh pitching staff, but I don't like them as a top 8. I don't think they're good enough to be a top 8. I think there were teams that were more deserving of that, but can't do anything about it now. So I think Georgia and Georgia Tech win their regional opening round games. I think we get a Georgia Tech 1-0 game, obviously. I think UNCW beats Army. Then I think Georgia beats Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech beats UNCW. Then I think Georgia Tech, will win a game 6, but then Georgia will come back and win a game 7 and advance to the Super Regional. Next up is the Clemson Regional. I really like Clemson this year. I haven't really researched them that much. I think, just from what I've seen, they've just been really good. Just looking at scores, watching their games, looking at their stats and all that. They just always seem to be either just beating a really good team or hanging in with them. I really like Clemson this year, man. I think they can go far. I think Clemson beats High Point, Vanderbilt beats Coastal Carolina, Clemson beats Vanderbilt beats Coastal Carolina, and then Clemson wins the regional easily. I don't think Vanderbilt's very good. Coastal Carolina probably shouldn't even been in the tournament, and Clemson easily gets through that. Alright, next up is the Stillwater Regional. Man, this is probably the toughest regional, if I'm being honest. At least the one with the most overall talent. I could see any of the top 3 seeds coming out of this regional on top. I think Oklahoma State wins the opening round game. I think Florida wins the opening round game too. And then I think Nebraska beats Niagara in the elimination game. Florida, I think Florida beats Oklahoma State in that. And then I think Oklahoma State beats Nebraska. Then I think Oklahoma State beats Florida to force game 7, but Florida wins game 7 because Oklahoma State Stadium is just so home run, friendly. I think that's all that Florida has as a Florida fan. That's all that we do. I think that's the perfect stadium for us to make a run in. And if this was any other stadium, I'd probably have us going 0-2 or 1-2. We're just not good enough. We are good enough. Like, that's the thing. We're good enough. We just don't want to put it together. And I don't think they will put it together. But I think that this stadium will definitely help us move on to the Super Regional. Next up is the Santa Barbara Regional. This one is probably one of the weaker regionals, if I'm being honest. I think UCSB beats Fresno. I think Oregon beats San Diego. Then I think UCSB beats Oregon. Fresno State beats San Diego. And I actually think San Diego beats Fresno State. Then I think Oregon beats San Diego. Then I think UCSB beats Oregon and sweeps the regional. Alright, last up on the regional is the College Station Regional. I think Texas A&M, I just really like Texas A&M too. I think Texas A&M and Clemson are the two teams that I'm like the most high on making deep runs in this tournament. They've got Jace Lavalette, Braden Montgomery. I think it's Braden, I'm pretty sure. They're just so deep on the offense, and they've got a decent rotation too. They really remind me of Florida last year as a Florida fan, with they've got a really good rotation. It's not like the best in the country or conference, but it's still really, really solid. And then they've got a really lethal offense, obviously, like Florida did last year too. And yeah, I think that those two teams are very similar. And obviously Florida was inches away from a championship last year, and I expect Texas A&M to do the same this year. I think they beat Grambling. I think Texas beats Louisiana. Texas Tech. Then I think Louisiana beats Grambling. Then I think Texas A&M beats Texas. And I think Louisiana comes back and beats Texas in the elimination game. But then Texas A&M, they're just too good. They're sweeping through this regional easily and move on to the Supers. Alright, next up we've got a Knoxville Super Regional between Tennessee and Wake Forest. This one could get interesting, obviously, with the Chase Burns homecoming and everything. Obviously transferred away from Tennessee last year. But I think Wake Forest takes game one here with Chase Burns on the mound. I think he comes back with revenge on his mind. I mean, I won't say revenge is the right word, but I think he's just hyped up and he throws an absolute gem, and I think Wake Forest wins game one. I think Tennessee wins the last two games of that regional, though. Josh Hartle for Wake Forest just hasn't been reliable this year. I don't know what game he'll start, but I think whatever game Chase Burns starts, he'll win. That's what I think. But then I think Tennessee wins the other two and moves on to the College World Series. Next up, we've got the Tallahassee Super Regional, which is between Florida State and Oklahoma. I haven't seen much of Florida State on the weekends. Obviously, I haven't seen much of Oklahoma, but I think Florida State gets it done, and I think they sweep through with their home field advantage, and they move on to the College World Series. Next up is the Fayetteville Super Regional between Arkansas and Mississippi State. I think Arkansas, they played in the regular season. Mississippi State gave them some trouble. I think Arkansas wins game one with Hagen Smith, obviously. Mississippi State comes back, wins game two, but Arkansas wins game three and advances to the College World Series, in my opinion. Next up would be the Chapel Hill Super Regional between DBU and North Carolina. Obviously, I said I really like DBU, but North Carolina, I don't feel like I can pick against a top 4 seed here. I think North Carolina, they sweep through this Super Regional 2-0 and move on to the Conference Series. Next up is the Lexington Super Regional between Kentucky and UC Irvine. I mean, that's just a long way to travel for UC Irvine. Kentucky's getting a lot more fan support. I think Kentucky wins that Super Regional 2-0 too. Next up is the the Athens Super Regional between Georgia and NC State. Man, Georgia is just in so much trouble with that pitching. I think they have a bad weekend, and I think NC State, I think they sweep that. I think they go on the road and sweep Georgia and move on to the College World Series. Next up is the Clemson Super Regional between Clemson and Florida. Obviously, I said Florida needs like a really good stadium. Clemson is a great stadium for home runs. It's like 310 to left field, 320 to right. It's like a little league ballpark, but I know I said that's Florida's advantage, but I just don't see them beating Clemson. I think maybe Florida forces a game 3 with Liam Peterson or Jack Caglione on the mound, but I think Clemson wins and advances to the College World Series. Next up, it would be the College Station Super Regional between Texas A&M and UCSB. This one I think is easy for Texas A&M. I think Texas A&M 2-0s this Super and goes to Omaha. Next up is the College World Series. So the first game of the of Bracket 1 is going to be Tennessee versus Tennessee versus Florida State. Obviously, I like Florida State a lot, but I just think Tennessee, they're really good this year. I think they win that one. Then you've got UNC versus Arkansas. I know Arkansas is going to have Hagen Smith on the mound. I feel like I have to pick them just because of that. I have to pick Arkansas to beat UNC. I think Hagen Smith is just too good. He's going to be really good in a big ballpark in Omaha, and he will advance Arkansas to the 1-0 game. So next up we have the elimination game. The first elimination game between, I believe, would be UNC and Florida State. I think I'm going to pick Florida State and win that, if I'm being honest. I feel like Florida State's just been due for a good year. I think they win that and move on to the second elimination game. After that, I think Arkansas gets absolutely killed by Tennessee in the 1-0 game. Then I think, Florida State will beat Arkansas in the second elimination game. And then that will give us a Florida State-Tennessee regional final, or bracket final. I think Florida State forces a game 7, winner take all, but then Tennessee wins that and advances to the finals. So for the first game of bracket 2, it will be Kentucky versus NC State. I think Kentucky, I don't really think that they get it done. I think NC State gets that and moves on to the 1-0 game. I think NC State pulls off a 2021 magic, pulls off some 2021 magic again and advances to the 1-0 game. And then the second game, you're going to have Clemson versus Texas A&M. These are two teams I'm really high on. I think Texas A&M wins that. I think that's going to be a really good game, Clemson versus Texas A&M, for a possible College World Series game. That's one you might want to keep your eye on. That would be a really very good matchup, but I think Texas A&M wins that. For the elimination game, you've got Clemson versus Kentucky. I don't like Kentucky a lot this year. I think they're just like, they've just been so close to losing so many games, at least what it feels like from watching them. Florida easily could have swept them, and we aren't even that good, obviously. And I think Clemson beats Kentucky, and Kentucky gets 0-2 in Omaha. After this, I think Texas A&M will knock off NC State and advance to the bracket final. Then I think Clemson beats NC State, and then you get a Clemson-NC State rematch. I think Clemson forces a Game 7, but Texas A&M advances to the finals versus Tennessee. So the final would be Texas A&M versus Tennessee. I think Texas A&M wins the first one, Tennessee wins the second one. Texas A&M wins the third one. I think Texas A&M's got a really solid rotation. I think that's going to be the key for them to winning it all. They're just the most balanced team, it feels like, of all the teams. So yeah, that's it. I think Texas A&M gets it done, and they take home the trophy to College Station this year. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.